We're looking at our trig functions now in terms of a point on the terminal line. And so we're using our x and y coordinates to define the trig functions. It's helpful to consider the sign, SIGN, of these x and y values in the different quadrants. Here in the first quadrant, our x's are going to be positive and our y's are going to be positive. In the second quadrant, our y values are still positive because we're going up, but our x values are negative because we're moving to the left. In the third quadrant, we are going to the left and down, so every point in the third quadrant will have a negative x value and a negative y value. And in the fourth quadrant, we're once again moving to the right, so our x values will be positive, but our y values will be negative because we're moving down. To see how these signs, SIGNs, affect the trig functions, let's look again at those trig function definitions of a general angle. Sine of theta is b, which we said earlier, our b is the y value, so it's really y over r, and our a is the x value, so it's really x over r, and so forth, y over x, and the other ones follow in suit. One thing I will note is that at this point we are going to assume that r, which is a distance, is going to be a positive number. So r is greater than 0, and that will affect the positive or negative signs for each of these trig functions. So the sign, SINE, is going to be positive whenever y is positive. In other words, sine is positive in the first quadrant and in the second quadrant. Cosine is going to be positive where the x is positive. So cosine is going to be positive in the first quadrant and the fourth quadrant. Tangent is going to be positive anywhere that x and y have the same sign. So if x and y are both positive, then the tangent would be positive. If x and y are both negative, then tangent would also be positive, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. One mnemonic used to help us remember which functions are positive in each quadrant is that all students take calculus. In the first quadrant, all functions are positive. In the second quadrant, sine is positive, and also cosecant, because cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. In the third quadrant, tangent is positive, and again, if tangent's positive, then cotangent has to be positive. And finally, in the fourth quadrant, cosine is positive, and its reciprocal function, secant, is positive as well. We can use this to help us to find the values of trig functions in various places. To summarize, given our quadrants, in 1 and 2, sine and cosecant are positive. In 1 and 4, cosine and secant are positive. And in 1 and 3, tangent and cotangent are positive. This gives you a little visual of the graph, and I will have this posted in your homework as well.